all at the same time. And a lot of conflict is happening between all of these bills, which makes it really challenging to digest and figure out what comes next. One thing I'll mention, they said it on the CCI call today, and I heard it yesterday, but I feel like it's now a fact because I've heard it in many meetings, is that there's 100 bills more introduced as of today than as of this date in the session last year. So if we all look a little more tired this year, there is a reason. There are a lot more bills that are floating around, and all of the big ones kind of are dropping right now. As you guys know, we're going to talk about two specific areas, which I'm going to talk about in a minute on Tuesday. So we're going to use today's time to talk about the other bills that are on our priorities that are aligned with council's legislative principles, since we're doing such a focused update on Tuesday, just to make sure that you're hearing updates on all of the bills, because even though we'll only talk about housing income or income aligned housing and firearm and public safety Tuesday, all the other bills are still moving as well. So, but before we do that, Mayor Castriata, I wanted to see if Chloe, was she able to join us today?
I was waiting to hear back and she hasn't confirmed. I have a
Okay.
student from Legacy that's been shadowing me off and on. And she's here. She's connecting.
Oh, great.
Chloe Whiteside. I'll embarrass her.
Hi,
Hi
Chloe.
there.
Hi,
Hello.
Chloe. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Did you want to turn on your camera and say hi to the council and our lobby team, or are you fine just,
Hang on, just
hanging
a
out?
second.
Okay.
I'm
So
kind of
yeah,
like a mess right now.
it's okay. She's a junior at Legacy and she's trying to learn about local government. So this is a part of it. And this is what we do during the legislative session, Chloe. We monitor legislation that's going through the state house and the Senate if it impacts Broomfield. So you're gonna get to learn a lot today. Take it away, Danae.
Awesome. Yeah, hang on. I'll turn on my camera in just a second. See if it works. It does.
There it
Hi.
is. Great. Hi, Chloe. Welcome. As the mayor said, they are a busy crew. So this will be a nice snapshot of a bunch of work that they do in a variety of membership organizations. And I think you have Guyleen, who's a big organizer and has made a big impact on legislation both last year, and I anticipate will probably have an impact again this year. So it should be an interesting time for you to observe and watch. And I will send the link, Eileen and Chloe. I have your email for our future ones in case it works out for you to join as well. You're always welcome. So.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, we'll go ahead and dive in. So, as I mentioned, we'll focus on the bills that are not, so from our priority areas, but are the ones that are not being discussed next Tuesday. So, you all received the email from Manager Hoffman. The one thing I do want to mention, so we kind of tried to call out all the bills, many of them in conflict of each other. So we're trying to get through how those will work. For example, occupancy limits when that's addressed in other bills. So we're doing some deeper analysis between now and next Tuesday. I don't know. There is one big bill still floating around in the housing world that we've been a part of in the draft stage, which is the Sustainable Affordable Housing Strategies. That came out of the Strategic Growth Executive Order. CML has helped write it. It's with Zenzinger and Kirkmeyer. We have seen the draft, but and I'm going to look at Ruth and Julie. I checked just a moment ago. I don't think that has still, yeah, it still has not been introduced. So we'll be monitoring if that happens to be introduced between now and next Tuesday. We'll add it to that conversation because it is kind of part of that bigger package. As I mentioned before, there's 100 more bills as of today than what they had introduced last year as of this date. And so they mentioned that on the call because the drafters are really far behind. So I know at the council meeting, last Tuesday, there was a question about the RTD accountability reform bill and where that's at, since all we have is the white paper that the mayor shared last week and then the fact sheet. That bill also still has not been introduced. So I think it's par for the course. We're just a little behind on some of the drafting. So more to come, but did want to let you know we're continuing to monitor that, and we'll be as updated as possible on Tuesday, knowing that things are going to change between now and then. So with that, I think I'll pass it over to Ruth and Julia to kind of walk us through our different priority bills outside of the housing bills and the firearm public safety bills.
Great. Thank you so much, Danae. And welcome everybody to our second update of the session with you all in this format. Also just want to shout out again to your amazing staff. They're just amazing. I can tell you, having working with all the different membership associations that we do and with other even municipalities that have a presence at the Capitol, really leaning on Broomfield to bring that expertise and to assist in as we all collectively try to move through what is just really a mass of bills, maybe unlike any we've seen in many, many years. So as Danae said, today we're going to focus on transportation, human services, climate and the environment, and some election stuff. Next Tuesday, we're going to talk directly with council about income aligned housing and land use. So much going on in that space, and do know that we are again working very actively with your team on those issues and with your associations. So to start us off, then just want to look at several transportation bills that you all have reviewed and some weighed in on, but some are just monitoring and wanted to know what's happening with them. The first of these is House Bill 1012, which is the Front Range Passenger Rail Efficiency Bill. This is kind of I guess I'd say a meat and potatoes bill. It's sort of, it's strictly aimed at helping the Front Range Passenger Rail District do their work better. It deals with voting processes and how they can reach decisions, how they're reporting back to various jurisdictions. And so it's not it doesn't change a lot of policy, but it helps them do their work more efficiently. This is moving very quickly. It's already all the way through the House and is pending in the Senate Finance Committee. The Senate Transportation Committee next, or not till the 4th of March. So a couple weeks, but no issues concerned with this, and hopefully it'll help tee us up for more good work with the Front Range Passenger Rail. And there is a lot of activity going on in that space, I think, as you know. Senate Bill 32 is one that Broomfield is supporting actively, and I think Councilman Schaaf actually testified on this in its first committee. This would set up in perpetuity free fare for a couple of months, 1 to 2 months during the ozone season, where people can ride the bus or any other transit that might be available to them in our region for free. And then it also institutes a free fare for Colorado youth. So the idea here being, one, to support our youth to get to various activities, school, etc., but also to encourage new public transit users. So this bill did, when it was introduced, also have a tax credit component to it, and it was removed from the bill. Really felt like that was more complex and needed more time for discussion. But the other two pieces of the bill remain, and it passed through its first committee, again with our support. It is headed now to the Finance Committee, and that will happen next week on next Tuesday, the 27th. So they typically don't take a lot of testimony in that committee because it is the second time they've heard the bill. They're kind of zeroing in on the numbers, but folks are interested. They certainly, we can have you testify if that's of interest. And then the last of our priority bills under just the transportation space is Senate Bill 36, and this is the Vulnerable Road Users Bill. Broomfield does not have a formal position on this one, but our CCAT and CML are supportive, as is the Northwest Metro Mayors and Commissioners Coalition. And this one made it through its first committee. It was heavily amended with actually the input from your team, as well as other transportation practitioners with various municipalities, to make this flexible and easy for jurisdictions to actually access this money. It's $20 million a year based on fees associated with on your registration of your vehicle, that would be used to do projects around pedestrian, biking, etc., safety. And we worked very hard to get this bill in a shape where it hopefully is going to be easily accessible and easily out into the project. It passed its first committee. Again, the Transportation Committee, it also is up next week on the 27th. and it's also in finance. This one is running into a little bit more challenges. We have a couple of committee members that have some concerns with it, from just how many fees are we going to be putting on the backs of our constituents and our drivers, and some concern around how it is treated relative to how electric vehicles are treated. They're in the bill, obviously. Also, they are a registered vehicle, and they tend to weigh more because they're heavier. And so the question is, are we sort of at cross purposes here when we try to promote electric vehicles, but we're also now putting more fees on them? So some desire to maybe try to balance those two interests.
Ruth, can I ask a question about that?
Oh,
Because
yeah, of course.
part of our concern was the lack of proportionality in some of these enterprises that and the reason why I acquiesced and supported it in Northwest Mayors and Commissioners is because they said our staff was advocating for that component, so that we're not
Yep.
subsidizing other areas, as is with a lot of our transit funding. So do you know if that's been added into it? I mean,
Yes, yes, Commissioner,
Okay.
excuse me, Mayor, that is a great question, a great point. And we actually have, there's a provision in the bill that talks about the grants must be proportional to the amount that the jurisdiction put in. So you're spot on with that concern. And I think your team felt, I see some thumbs up from Manager Hoffman, that there is, it is addressed in the bill. Now, we're going to have to watch it, we're going to have to watch these things, should it pass. I mean, it's going to not having an easy road to make sure it's implemented in that way, but the language speaks to it. So that's vulnerable road users. And then the last one on the transportation docket here was Senate Bill 65, which is basically increasing a penalty for people who drive while on their cell phones. Or I guess any other device you might have. And the idea here being, we need to really lift up the concerns around that kind of distracted driving, that it's causing accidents, and is just not generally good for our roads, for our traffic on our roads. This one was introduced last year, made it all the way through the Senate, and then failed in the House over concerns around frankly, racial profiling, and that this could be another reason for law enforcement to pull certain groups of citizens over, irrespective of what they were doing with or without a phone. And so, to be candid with you, I don't know that those concerns have been addressed to the satisfaction of the members in the House who raised it last session. And so I think we'll see this measure move through the Senate as it did last year, and then potentially have some challenges in the House. But we do, Broomfield supports it, and we'll keep watching it for you. It's a tricky one, and one that I think clearly has a lot of passion on both sides. So that's the Senate Bill 65. So any questions on those general transportation bills before we move into local control? Or any, I know all of you know about these bills as well. So any other comments or information sharing that you'd like to offer? Oh, I see Council Member Ward.
Yes, thank you. So Dr. Cog met last night, and we discussed the vulnerable road users bill. Broomfield abstains since we have not taken a formal position on it, but Dr. Cog itself took an amend position. They want to see the funds distributed directly to, I think they said each county. So I just want to give you guys that.
Okay, that's very helpful information, Council Member. Thank you. We can connect with them. We obviously work pretty closely with our Dr. Cog allies too, and just see if that's something that other folks want to take a look at as well. I will share that, again, your staff and others did talk about more of a formulaic way to approach this fund. And because it is an enterprise, there's some limitations around how the money can be distributed. It has to have a board of directors, has to be distributed through that board. So that was just a consideration that a reality that we had to manage. Yes, Council Member
It's Mayor
Thanks.
Pro Tem.
It's fine. So I just wanted to touch on that comment by Austin with DRCOG. So we had talked about that at one point is trying to cut the state out of this idea altogether, and basically say if counties want to do this, if they want to be able to additionally have this fee on them, and they aren't allowed to do that, could we just basically reshape this whole idea and say counties have the ability to add this fee in this way for this purpose, as opposed to having the state collect these fees, take the fee off, their administration fee off the top, and then funnel the money back to the counties and the municipalities. It just seems like a much better way to do this whole bill. But I don't know if there's any appetite, and perhaps with DRCOG pushing that amendment, maybe there will be more appetite for that. But is there any appetite like that to really restructure this bill, or is this going to continue to move in the same fashion that the transportation enterprises did out of 260?
That's very helpful, Mayor Pro Tem. My apologies. Again, we're just monitoring this for you all, but that's so helpful for us to hear what's going on with the other groups. And so we can plan to check in with them and check in with the other groups that we're working with and kind of report back. There may be some limitations, again, around the fact that you have to set up an enterprise, but we will look into it and can certainly share back. Great. Any other thoughts, questions on the transportation items? No? Oh, yes. I'm sorry, Manager Hoffman.
I apologize. To Mayor Pro Tem's point, just real quickly before we leave this, kind of bifurcating that conversation, Mayor Pro Tem, you're absolutely right. So setting up a new enterprise is one thing, and the distribution is something else. So to Councilmember Ward's point, requesting that it have a different distribution methodology is vastly different than having, as the mayor said, an equitable distribution methodology that you get back what you put in is one thing. Setting up another enterprise is something else, but having a different methodology to redistribute those funds directly to counties, the indication and the feedback is that it's a bridge too far. So while we'll continue to monitor and make sure that those two really key components, equitable distribution, really is first and foremost on everybody's mind, right? Because if it's not an equitable distribution methodology that's a repeatable process, then it doesn't matter whether it's a direct allocation or anything else, right? So we got to keep our eye on the prize on the big things.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead then and move to local control. Although now, so Danae, did you want to talk about 1168, the Equal Access to Public Meetings bill? We can come back to that. We can talk about human services and come back.
No, I can jump in.
Okay,
So,
go for it.
Yeah, so I mentioned this bill during the legislative update to council last week. It's a challenging bill because, as I mentioned, Broomfield is committed to diversity, equity, and that lens in which we do all of our business. And there's also limitations of the practicality and application of the bill. So the way the bill is written is essentially every meeting associated with the local government business-related meeting has to be live streamed. So it has to be available via streaming so that it is truly accessible. And Broomfield's, based on the conversations I've been in over the last few weeks, we are very much ahead of a lot of folks in regards to how we record and share all of our meetings, which is amazing with the CRL and people being able to call. It's been really neat actually to share that with other communities. But there are a lot of concerns about the cost and the staffing to be able to provide these services. And the consequences for not being able to do it is that you can get a civil discrimination suit. It's a challenging bill. I will tell you, CCI just talked about it this morning, and I see Councilmember Hinkle on here. They did take an opposed position. CCI did, because of the challenges of the bill. It's not because everybody's committed to the accessibility lens of the bill, but making sure that we find a way that's practical, and also that staff can deliver that. So right now we're just monitoring it. We anticipate that there's going to be amendments. I know there's a lot of conversations happening right now between CML and the bill sponsors. So we're continuing to watch those conversations, and we'll see where it goes, and continue to keep council updated. But it's a fairly complex bill, with the day-to-day implications being heavy for local governments, especially in the rural communities that don't have access to, even today I learned, broadband for some of them. So if you don't have Wi-Fi, it's very hard to provide those services. So again, trying to take a statewide approach is really challenging when there's a lot of local issues or barriers to this. So Councilmember Hinkle.
Thank you. Yeah, we just discussed this here. I'm in a side office now, and James is actually in the other meeting as well, and online here. I'm thinking. I just wanted to reiterate that it was very difficult for our rural counties to really participate in that. They felt really hamstrung by that idea. I did have a question for staff, and I couldn't quite understand it through the whole bill. Would this include places like our ACES boards and commissions? So that would include all of those, right? So, okay. So that's just something to think about when you have all of our boards and commissions, and then the type of space that even we have. Our rural communities are even suffering even more with that. But that's not to say that we can't work towards that. So I have a feeling we'll see this bill come back if it's going to be killed at some point, as far as, accessibility. So we do need to work towards that anyway. So just be thinking about that in the back of your head. Thanks.
And sorry, Ruth, if I may, to go on a tangent for just a second, but I did want to share in that same update, they talked about the website accessibility bill that passed, I believe it was in 21 or 22, that staff has been working on to make sure all of our websites, right? And now with the Agenda Link, our PDFs, all those changes, we did the Empathy Lab last week with staff, which was incredible. The call on CCI today, I don't know if you heard Council Members Hinkle and James Marshall, that they were talking about how they're really pushing back because all of these people are not going to meet it. And so that's where it just was, I want to share that with you all. It's pretty cool to see how staff, again, it's because of the lens in which we do business, right? And not just a second thought. But we've been able to accomplish a lot of these things that a lot of municipalities are still struggling to implement, and counties are struggling to implement. So as Councilmember Hinkle mentioned, we can always do better, and we're always looking at ways to do that. And we're continuing to move that needle in the way that we do everyday business at Broomfield.
Thank you for that update on the bill and on the context around it. Okay, we'll go ahead and move to human services and public health then. Lots of bills also and actions in this space. The first one that Broomfield has taken as a support is House Bill 1038, which deals with expanding capacity for youth who are deemed high acuity. They have very complex behavioral, social needs, and no place to go because of the lack of capacity in the community. They often get stuck in hospitals, the most restrictive and inappropriate form of care. That one we've been working on very closely with CCI, and it actually received a support from the administration as well, with the Department of Human Services and Healthcare Policy and Financing. It had a $30 million support fiscal note or placeholder, it's called, in the governor's budget request. And so should that budget pass, there's money for this bill. And the bill itself passed through the House Health Committee, and it is pending in House Appropriations, where again, that $30 million price tag has a match in the budget. So once the budget starts moving, they'll move in tandem. But that one, it's been a long time in an effort to get it moving forward. And so I think many folks are very excited that it's actually got some traction. And in the same vein, there is another bill, Senate Bill 59, which is also led by CCI, and that would seek to establish a broader system of care for similar youth across perhaps a broader continuum, but nonetheless, youth who are in the child welfare system or in need of behavioral services at large, and have our state respond with a more comprehensive system of care. This one also came out of the interim committee on child welfare, but as introduced, it would set this system up not just for kids in the public, systems in child welfare, Medicaid, et cetera, but also children who have commercial health insurance. Children at large, just all Colorado children could be eligible for the services as the bill was introduced. CCI has just done an amazing job on this bill, along with Senator Kirkmeyer, who's the Senate sponsor. The bill, as introduced, had a $1.2 billion fiscal note. That's with a B, billion, not million. Massive, obviously. And together, CCI and Senator Kirkmeyer have done what they're calling a crosswalk to basically show the state agencies, hey, this piece of the legislation you're already doing over here in your agency, this part you're already doing over here. And so this crosswalk that they've done with the legislative fiscal analysts reduced the fiscal note from 1.2 billion to 300 million. So, I mean, I want to give hats off to them, because that doesn't happen very often, where the administration comes in and says, this is the price tag. And through education and work on behalf of the sponsor and the advocates, they were able to lower it. 300 million is still an incredibly big fiscal note, clearly. The bill is up actually this afternoon in its first committee, and there are several amendments that will be offered, one of which is to take out the commercial population, so that the focus of the system of care will be solely on kids who are in the public systems. That will, of course, reduce the fiscal note as well. So, this one probably has a longer, tougher road, but I think there's, it's laying the groundwork for something that's needed, and maybe one of those that we just need to keep coming back at. So that is System of Care, Senate Bill 59. So before I move on, I just maybe stop, because those are related bills, to see if there's any questions on those two child welfare pieces, or comments or other input that you all have, again, from your other perspectives. Okay, well, again, it's up in committee this afternoon, so we'll report out on that for you. And then it will probably, we're assuming it's going to pass today, where it will probably sit in Senate Appropriations for a good amount of time. And I should make clear, it does not have a placeholder. Unlike the high acuity bill, Senate bill, or House Bill 1038, this one does not have money set aside for it. So, all right, moving on then to Senate Bill 22. This is more in the public health space. This is a bill that clarified that statutory counties can regulate the whether or not flavor tobacco and nicotine products are sold in their jurisdiction. That was the intent of a bill that passed 3 years ago now, I believe. But the way it was written, it was not clear that authority was available for statutory counties. So we, Broomfield, obviously have the authority as we're a city and county, but this is expanding that to all counties in Colorado, and thus allowing them to make that choice if they so choose in their communities. That is already all the way through the Senate and is pending in its first House committee. So moving pretty quickly. The last item in this space that I will update you on is a measure coming from CALFO, or the Colorado Association of Local Public Health Organizations. This is seeking some indiscretionary funding from the state legislature for all of our local public health departments across the state. They had a $10 million chunk that was put in there pre-COVID, and it expired. Basically, it was a line item for their discretion. It then expired. The governor put a $7 million request for that line item in his budget. So below the 10 million that they had before. CalFO is asking the counties and other allies to work with them on actually not only getting the 10 million back, but trying to see that go up to about 12 million, which would accommodate for inflation. And of course, it's just the incredible demands that we've seen on our local public health agencies. That measure is going through the budget process. The Department of Public Health's figure setting happens on the 28th, next Wednesday. And so CCAT is supporting that. And we know several individual counties are supporting that. So just wanted to keep you apprised of that budget action. And maybe CCI is too, I'm not totally clear. That is our updates in the health and human service space. So any comments or questions? Okay. Well, then I'm going to, I guess, move to climate and environmental issues. And I might go ahead and turn it over to Julia, because I've been talking at you for a while, to just speak a bit about the yet to be introduced bills in this space. So there's a lot more coming. Julia?
Thanks, Ruth. Yeah, and Danae, correct me if I'm wrong. There are a couple monitor bills that we can go through, but I can also give you kind of high level where they're at the ozone air quality bills. Any preference? Start there. Okay. Brilliant. Okay, I'll throw in to the chat, and for the sake of time, probably not for as long as I can, OneDrive. I will throw into the chat once I figure out how to put it in the chat, kind of a quick summary and what we're going to present later for CCAT tonight on the ozone air quality bills. Actually, as we speak, they're doing a press release of the bill package over at the Capitol. So expect that those 3 bills will be introduced, in waves potentially, but this week and next week. Just kind of a quick reminder, it's a pretty broad coalition of sort of the usual folks between more progressive local government folks, environmental groups, and then our kind of usual players in terms of legislative sponsors. So the ozone air quality package is going to be made up of 3 different parts. One is focused on air quality and pollution emissions reductions. That's being led by Senators Priola and Cutter and Representatives Rutenall and Garcia, addressing kind of oil and gas emissions databases, off-road vehicle emission standards, a pause on oil and gas drilling seasonally. So I know there's been a bill introduced that's kind of the outright, ending of new drilling. This one says, can we limit the oil and gas drilling during those high ozone seasons in the summer? And then it's also got a vehicle miles traveled reduction measure. So
what number was that, Julia? Could you give
this one's, yeah, these are all not introduced yet. So I can share in the chat once I'm done presenting the latest drafts, which we've been kind of coordinating with your staff on. And then Councilwoman Jean Lim has been doing a phenomenal job giving a lot of feedback, at least through CCAT. So kudos to Jean for all the feedback she's been giving. But I'll throw in, yes, the latest drafts and these summary slides. Once I'm done talking at you, I'm not good at both. So that's kind of one big package is air quality emissions and reductions. The next bill will be air pollution permit. That one's going to be Representatives Bacon and Wilford and Senator Cutter. That one's going to require oil and gas operators to be treated as one source by aggregating admissions across the site and including pre-production admissions. So it's going to have requirements for new sources and then requirements for operations to get an air permit from CDPHE before they can drill. So kind of more around pollution permitting that at least the environmental community and the coalition believes are not, currently in place and in practice to make sure there's more safeguards before the permitting can be given. And then the last bill in the package is an air enforcement bill by Senator Winter and then Representative Froelich. It's going to create a category for repeat polluters. I guess coming out of this is like the Suncor issue. I guess what they found was that the violations and fees they were getting from at least the current enforcement was so little that it didn't really do the effect of preventing the harm from happening. It was kind of like, oh yeah, we'll just take the hit and continue with the bad, environmental standards because we can afford it. So kind of coming after those bad actors, having a category for repeat folks so that if you are repeatedly breaking the air quality standards, that you have an increased, penalties as that goes up. It also creates a right for public to enforce, so a little bit more of those impacted communities and vulnerable folks having a seat at the table, and then increases local government's ability to fine from currently it's $300 a day limited. So it's an increase in local government's ability to fine. These ones are huge, meaty bills. So that's just a quick snapshot. I'll throw in the biggest kind of news we've gotten on these in the latest drafts, but should be introduced, today, tomorrow. Air quality bills press conference is going on, and there's a fourth air quality climate bill to approve upon GHG admissions rulemaking that's still in the works. So there's these 3 bills that are coming now, and then down the line, so they're doing a lot this year. They'll be looking at sort of other greenhouse gas emissions, but it's all coming out of this same ozone air quality coalition. So I know that's a lot, and I'll make sure to get you all the latest in the chat as well.
The one thing I would add, Julia, and I think Mayor, this is what the one you were adding about, there is the one bill, I think Manager Hoffman sent a few weeks ago, the news article. It's Senate Bill 159, which is the modifications to energy and carbon management processes. And that's the one that Senator Hawkes Lewis is sponsoring. And it has a phased out, so it's for to protect the health and safety of residents and the environment. And it phases out the number of permits in 28, 29 into 2030. So I think that was an overlook of me. I have it on my internal tracker, but now looking at the public tracker, I don't see it on there. So my apologies. We are monitoring it, and I have it right here, and I'll make sure it's on the public one that you guys all have as well. So again, that's 159 modifications to energy and carbon management, and we'll make sure we get that shared out. I did want to share, we are monitoring it. It's a big bill, obviously, in a lightning rod. You've seen a lot of the media noise about it. It was introduced officially on February 13th in the Senate and was referred to the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. As of right now, it hasn't been scheduled, so it's just in the parking lot right now. So we are actively monitoring that, and we'll share, but right now it's just kind of sitting. So more to come. I don't know if it's because of the momentum of these other ozone bills. And again, we're going to be in that same position that we are right now with the housing related bills, where looking at them and making sure they're not in conflict and how do they come together. So we'll see when those drop, but we will get 159 added to the Cindy, if you can make a note for the public tracker, that would be great. Awesome. Thank you.
And I would also maybe observe, it sounds like that one, the Senate Bill 159, is not necessarily a part of this other package that, they're having the meeting on the steps of the Capitol, et cetera, today. Doesn't mean they can't blend and go together, but, just an observation that one was introduced maybe in advance because it hasn't been a part of this other package. Awesome. Well, lots going on in this space. And so we may want to just spend some time at our next meeting to talk solely about the climate and ozone bills. A couple others to share with you, though, that have been introduced. One is Senate Bill 5, and that is a measure that would prohibit heavy water use landscaping. And, essentially, this, of course, is the goal towards climate, pushing back on climate change, helping, of course, in our arid communities here to preserve water. This is one that CML opposes. I don't know, the CCI has a position on this, but one of those, again, where we always talk about the tensions of clearly our, climate action goals may be in conflict here with the local control value, and how does that balance? So we're just monitoring that one. It does have a hearing next Monday, the 26th at 1:30 p.m. So it's about to get a day in court, so to speak. And then finally, and Danae, I may need to phone a friend with you on this one. Senate Bill 81 is dealing with trying to look at plastic chemicals. I don't even want to say the word because I'm going to mispronounce it. Really trying to minimize these chemicals in our environment. So Danae, you want to speak to that one?
Yeah, I can jump in. So the PFAS bill, and I did want to update Ken. I know Public Works Director Ken Rutt is on the call and he can speak as well. Let me get the acronym correct. Let me look at my notes real quick because I know I'm going to mess that up. But it's CWWUC, which is the Colorado Wastewater Utility Council. They took a position to support Senate Bill 81 around PFAS, and they have circulated a fact sheet. And the reason for that, again, is just we all know the consequences of PFAS in our water systems, and it prevents the sale of certain materials that have PFAS in it. I don't know if you all recall, but I had mentioned there was some concern from the fire chiefs around their equipment that they needed, and it sounds like they've been able to reconcile those concerns. And so it really is just stopping selling products that have PFAS in it to minimize it getting into our water sources. So we are continuing to monitor that, as I said, through the professional organizations with Ken. That is in a support position, and we'll continue to watch it, but it's consistent with council's goals around environment and just having clean water, basic services for our residents to drink. And Ken, would you add anything to that?
No, that was a good summary. Yeah, the Wastewater Utility Council is definitely in support of that, and it's a process that's not going to be immediate, but it is a process that over time will help reduce those chemicals.
All right, thank you for that. So that was our priority issues in the climate environmental space. Again, a little lean on this call just because we're waiting for many of them to still be introduced. But we'll move on and just let you know that there's still a lot happening on the property tax front. And again, Mayor Castriota is taking one for the team and participating in the weekly meetings of the Property Tax Commission. They meet, I believe, Mayor, until the 15th of March, but that might even be extended. And so your job is to produce a report. Your job collectively is to produce a report on recommendations for property tax policy change that will then go to the legislature, with the possibility of them doing some bills yet this session. So Mayor Castriota, is there anything you would add to this?
Well, the good thing is it's county commissioner heavy and it's people from CCAT, like, Commissioner Pogue, Commissioner Kerr, and a lot of our friendly folks there that are prioritizing being able to pay for county services, much to the chagrin of some of the more conservative legislators who are on that commission that think we're just parasites and we don't, really care about keeping people in their homes. So it hasn't really taken off in terms of debate. We've really just been presented with so much information from different stakeholders, different taxing agencies, special taxing districts, and we're going to actually break out into small groups tomorrow to hone in on 3 separate issues. I don't know. I sent the agenda to council, and it's on the public website as well. So it's going to be focusing on. Well, let me pull it up. I don't have it handy, but I can get it handy. Hold on. Where's the agenda? I have so many tabs open, y'all. I lost my stuff. Okay. Hold on. The agenda. So the work group breakouts will be the second part of the meeting, and okay, that's not on the public.
Yeah, I don't know that they posted publicly the meeting agenda yet. So if you have it.
I have it open on my other.
Oh, I lied. We've got it. It just came up. I was looking yesterday. I can also throw this in the chat.
Yeah, go ahead. And then I'll tell you what we got internally for our agenda that we're going to be broken into 3 groups, taxpayer relief group focusing on monthly tax payments, expanding the homestead exemption to include all primary residences, and expanding circuit breakers for low or fixed income property owners, and also a non-residential value exemption, because we are hearing from our business community as well. What about us? It's still so, stacked against us. So we are going to discuss that. And then there's going to be an assessments group breakout of smoothing assessments through averaging, which makes sense to me, instead of being married to this point in time formula, which, as we saw at the last point in time, was an extraordinarily volatile real estate market, which inflated our home values artificially. Why not use an average? Why not use a smoothing snapshot as opposed to these anomalies? So I think that makes a lot of sense. Also, strategies to change the residential non-residential assessment ratio. You have folks on there that are like, we need to bring down the non-residential property tax rate. I'm like, well, we've already brought down the residential over the years artificially with the Gallagher and Tabor conundrum, forcing the ratcheting down to 6.7 or something now. So I said, we will not be, I did say this at the meeting. I said, you're looking at service cuts. If we also bring down the non-residential property tax revenue, well, then we have nothing to provide services. And that looks like, what Denver's having to do now: close down rec centers, libraries, not maintain parks anymore. So I'm glad I'm there to at least tell our story along with the other county commissioners who are there to advocate for our costs going up too. The cost of healthcare, the cost of human services, the cost of just basic essential services has inflated on our end. And then the last group is the local control group, truth and taxation, separating school and local taxing jurisdiction assessments, which is key to, stabilizing our school funding, which was also a high priority for the commission. So that they have certainty and stability. So tune in tomorrow. It'll all be unfolding live. You can listen in or you can go in person, and we'll be back at the old Senate library tomorrow, 1 to 5.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for your service on that commission. And again, this could be a sort of second act of the legislative session, is that we have some property tax measures to work on. Then finally, I don't know if we have time, but we thought maybe Julia could just give you a very high level on some of the ballot measures that are out there pending that we need to just keep our eyes on. So maybe Julia, just a quick on some of the key ones.
Yeah, just in terms of kind of timelines, because it's already that time. I'm sure you might have already gotten in the mail your presidential election primary ballots already out and about. But in terms of the actual statewide ballot, right now, the title board is still hearing many, many issues. So the only thing officially approved from the title board is Initiative 50, which Mayor Castriata is, dealing with in its own way. So that's the one from Michael Fields. It's the 4% cap reduction on property taxes. But beyond that, it's going to be a huge ballot next year. There's already 7 other measures that have been approved for circulation. The title board has another probably 40 that have been approved. The titles have been set. They're awaiting initial hearings. I think it's going to be over probably 20 questions potentially on the statewide ballot. So all of that process is still shaking out. Basically, if you're going to submit anything to the title board, and anything needs to be finalized by the middle of April. So all of that process is going to get done here in the not too distant future. So the title board has until the end of April to review the rest of the titles and potential ballot measures and start whittling those down. And then people will have a little bit more time for signature collection. I know that some are already in the process of gathering signatures, and then everything with signatures will have to be submitted to the Secretary of State by August 5th. So it's going to be a fun one beyond the presidential year. So I'm sure you're going to be harassed at your local King Supers for lots of petitions in the not too distant future. So just know that. And then we've heard that the legislature is looking at maybe a couple referred measures, like Ruth spoke about potentially with the property tax issues, but we're also hearing potentially around marriage equality, and there might be some other things shaking out from federally that might need to then have, state approved things. So just know that there might be a couple of referred measures from the state still in the works, but it's going to be a huge ballot.
Wow, 20 questions. Whew, I can't remember when we've had that many. And I can see your average person just going, no. So we'll see.
Well, we get updates from Greg Subetsky, the chief economist for the state, at our property tax committee, and he in real time will go, oh, look, another one just dropped. I mean, they're coming in fast and furious, and what makes the ballot is still out for to see, but it's nuts.
Yeah.
It's like they're all competing and trying to counteract the other one. It's scary.
It's insane.
So, well, we'll keep an eye on these. And again, as they begin to sort of shake out, we can give a more thorough report on what seems to be emerging for the ballot, and of course, how that impacts Broomfield. Well, that's the high level we have for you. I see we're coming up on time. Just would ask if there's any other questions on things that we've touched on today, and would share that this is maybe a third of the issues that you're working on. I mean, this sort of main act will be on Tuesday when we talk about the land use and transportation measures. There's quite a few of those that are very complex, just even one of them. So more to come. But for today, is there any questions or comments? Okay, well then I guess I'll turn it back to Danae, our fearless leader.
Well, thank you, Ruth and Julia, for the updates. I think that that's everything. So tomorrow, the legislative update and the weekly CMO Weekly will be very abbreviated. It's short. It will have the link to this recording. So for reference, if folks need it, and then we'll be spending our staff time preparing for the presentation on Tuesday. I will say, trying to figure out which bill you talk about first, because then to make sure you can understand how it impacts the next bill or the next bill is kind of challenging. So I've been working with Anna and Jeff to figure out what's the best way to present that in a package for council to make those different policy decisions that need to be made. Also, I just mentioned, I know that you all are getting a lot of emails. It's overwhelming some days with how many legislative stuff is coming out. And I know you're also getting it from all your different membership organizations. So we try to put it in a one-stop shop, and I'll continue to link it so you can go back and see it. But reshared, I'll make sure to reshare in the update tomorrow. And I think Councilmember Hinkle just shared it, but staff's feedback on the TOC bill. As we all know, the actual bill dropped on Tuesday. It's House Bill 1313. But we have been participating in stakeholder meetings for several months on that bill. And we anticipate that those core issues that we've identified as staff are going to be the same as we talk about the actual introduced bill. So more to come on that. But if we're missing something, please let us know. We're trying to communicate as much out as possible and as efficient and effective as possible. And we also know there's a lot of noise right now. So Councilmember Hinkle, I see your hand.
Danae, I just want to thank you for all you've done.
Oh, thank you. It's a village. So I
really appreciate it. I get a little teary today because, I'm running 2 different meetings, and so is James. And then Guyleen's in there too. And Jean is, doing a lot of oil and gas issues. I mean, it takes a team, and for you to hurt us cats is huge. So if I could afford a bonus, I totally would.
Well, thank
Personally.
you.
But yeah, I just really appreciate all the work you've done, and just really shout out to the group Aponte, right? Ruth, you and your group too. You've really, supported, and what I've noticed is that you really do appreciate Broomfield's elevated focus on certain issues, and you understand where we're coming from. So for you to cater it directly to Broomfield is very important to us. And then for Tuesday, I just want to remind fellow city council members that I realize that there isn't always a time constraint on legislative updates on Tuesday nights, but if we can be really brief on Tuesday, and just make sure that when you speak, you want to make sure you're speaking to everyone, and if there's ways that you want to talk to other city council members directly one-on-one before Tuesday, that'd be great. We try to make we had 3 issues on Tuesday night. We still didn't get home, you know, at a really good hour. So I just want to make sure that everyone's really sort of brief. And there's times where I just don't speak at council because I know that when I speak, I just need to make sure it's directed in a certain area where I feel, you know, it could be more powerful. So thank you.
And Mayor or Councilmember Hinkle, if I could add on to that, I will mention, as I put in the email, we will be sending out a revised agenda. So we're working ferociously right now on a memo to just kind of give that framework that was in the email, so it's transparent to the community about what we're going to be discussing, and then trying to kind of again call out just some of the backgrounds of. We gave you 4 construction defects bills, but just the basic summaries from the fiscal note. So not with staff's interpretation, but what the bills actually do, so that you do have a little time in advance. So watch for that. I was shooting for today, but I have a feeling it will come out tomorrow. So you should have that in advance to help with background work before the meeting.
And also
you, Janine.
definitely the latest on TOC, because in the CML legislative meeting last night, I heard injunction was added. So that puts up a red flag for me. It's no longer what they define. I don't know what a carrot is, if it's a giant carrot and they just want to hit us over the head with it, but the carrots are disappearing if there ever was one. So I am going to move that we take a position on Tuesday.
And I'll add to, thank you, Mayor. I'll add to that, as chair of the MAC, we hardly ever weigh in on legislation. That's actually not our role. We do a lot of education, and we do a lot of regional work, sort of behind the scenes with staff in a way. But on the TOC bill, we will be weighing in because it does affect our number one goal is to support our unhoused. And if the state is not communicating very well with what the local needs are, it does hurt our most vulnerable. And so we look forward to that position on Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I can't echo my gratitude enough for managing this whirlwind. But we'll just keep going.
That's right. We'll get through it. So, well, thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry everyone's going back to another meeting until 8 o'clock tonight, but may the caffeine gods be strong or whatever, and we'll see you all on Tuesday. Take care.
Y'all.